Have you ever trusted someone so deeply only to discover your entire life was built on lies? This is the story of how my world crumbled piece by piece, starting with a messy divorce, losing my job, and even ending up in jail for something I didn't do. But that wasn't the worst of it. While I was behind bars, I found out the ultimate betrayal. The child I'd loved and raised might not even be mine. What would you do if everything you believed in was ripped away? This is my journey, one of heartbreak, justice, and an unexpected fight for redemption. I never imagined my marriage would come to this. What started with love had turned into a battlefield. Emily, my wife of 8 years, suddenly became a stranger. Her demands were endless: alimony, half of everything, and possessions I knew she didn't even care about. It felt less about fairness and more about punishment. She already had more than enough thanks to her family's inheritance. Yet there she was, trying to squeeze every last bit out of me. I wanted to fight, but my lawyer advised otherwise. "Play it smart," he said, but smart didn't feel right when I was being stripped of everything I'd worked so hard to build. Every meeting with her lawyer felt like walking into an ambush. I'd sit across from her, watching her smirk as her demands grew bolder. How can someone you loved so deeply become this person? That question haunted me daily. The house, the car, even sentimental things. She wanted it all. Her relentless pursuit felt personal, a power play disguised as a legal battle. It hurt. But what stung the most was how easily she seemed to let go of the life we built together. I couldn't make sense of it. And then there was Lucy, our 6-year-old daughter, caught in the middle of it all. I'd always promised her that, no matter what, she'd be my priority. But Emily's actions made that nearly impossible. Every request I made to see Lucy felt like a favor I owed her. "You can't pick her up this weekend," Emily would say, using our daughter as leverage. It killed me. How do you protect your child when the other parent uses them as a weapon? I felt powerless and cornered. This wasn't just a divorce, it was war. And I was losing ground every day. I tried to remind myself to stay focused, to keep things civil for Lucy's sake. But the anger and resentment kept bubbling up. I started to notice cracks forming. Not just in our legal arguments, but in my patience. I knew this was only the beginning, and something told me the fight was far from over. Balancing my weekends with Lucy and the demands of work was like walking a tightrope. I thought I could keep it together, but the cracks were showing. My boss pulled me aside one day, and I knew from his tone that it wasn't good. "We need someone fully committed," he said. And just like that, my 15-year career ended. 15 years of loyalty, late nights, and sacrifices gone in a single conversation. Walking out of that office with a box of my things felt like the final nail in the coffin of everything I'd built. Losing my job wasn't just a financial blow, it was personal. It felt like the one stable thing I had left had been yanked out from under me. Emily, of course, wasted no time rubbing salt in the wound. "Maybe if you were more responsible, you'd still have a job," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Her words lingered in my mind, twisting the knife deeper. How could she not see the weight I was carrying, trying to hold everything together for Lucy? With no job, the financial strain hit fast. I tried to keep up with the alimony payments, rent and bills, but the numbers didn't add up. Every day brought a new worry, a new letter in the mail demanding money I didn't have. I started selling things I once treasured just to make ends meet. My watch, my guitar, even the couch I'd spent countless evenings on with Lucy. It was humiliating, but I didn't have a choice. My pride was the least of my concerns now. I tried to stay strong for Lucy, but I could feel the walls closing in. Every time I picked her up, I saw the questions in her eyes, questions she was too young to ask. I promised myself I wouldn't let her see me break, but I was running out of ways to keep that promise. I was losing everything piece by piece, and it felt like I was fighting a losing battle. Deep down, I knew this spiral was only going to get worse. I thought things couldn't get worse until they did. It started with a knock at the door one evening. 2 officers, stone-faced, handed me a warrant. Failure to pay child support, they said. I tried to explain, to plead, but their expressions never wavered. The world blurred as they led me away in front of my neighbors, who peeked through curtains and whispered. The humiliation burned more than the cold metal of the cuffs on my wrists. I didn't even know how to tell Lucy. What do you say when your world is crumbling in front of her innocent eyes? The holding cell was no refuge. Every moment felt like a punch to my dignity. The other men there, some quiet, others shouting, seemed like ghosts of broken lives, and now I was one of them. Emily's accusations echoed in my mind, the paperwork she filed to ensure this outcome, cutting deeper than any insult. Did she really believe I didn't want to provide for Lucy? Or was this just another cruel move to control me? I couldn't decide what hurt more, the system's indifference or the woman I once loved treating me like a villain. The days turned into weeks, each one dragging me further into despair. Letters came in, but they only piled onto my sense of failure. Bills I couldn't pay, notices threatening more consequences. It was endless. Yet one letter stood out. It was from an old friend, and his words changed everything. "There's something you need to know about Emily," he wrote. My hands trembled as I read on, each sentence more shocking than the last. Betrayal doesn't even begin to cover what I felt. The life I thought I had was a lie. And then came the part I couldn't ignore. Lucy might not be mine. Those words stole the air from my lungs. Anger, disbelief, confusion, they all swirled together in a storm I couldn't contain. I needed answers, but I was trapped in that cell, helpless and powerless. Still, the truth had a way of demanding attention, and I knew I couldn't let this go. It was time to confront the life Emily had built on secrets. The letter stayed in my hands long after I finished reading it. I kept rereading the words, hoping I'd misunderstood, but the message was clear. Emily had been unfaithful for years. The betrayal struck me like a knife to the chest, but it was the part about Lucy that truly broke me. She might not be mine. How do you even process that? Sitting in that cold cell, I felt the weight of every lie Emily had told me. All the sacrifices I made, all the times I swallowed my pride. For what? A life built on deceit. I replayed moments in my head, searching for clues I'd missed. Her late nights working, the sudden defensiveness about her phone, the trips she said were for family business. All the signs were there, but I'd been too blind to see them. And Lucy, the thought of her not being my daughter, left me gutted. How could Emily keep this from me? I gave everything for her, for our family. My anger burned hotter with every passing moment, but beneath it all was an ache I couldn't shake. Had my love for Lucy been based on a lie? The walls of the prison seemed to close in as I wrestled with the truth. My cellmate noticed my silence and gave me space, a rare kindness in a place like this. I didn't want pity, I wanted answers and justice. But most of all, I wanted to hold Lucy and tell her everything would be okay, even if I didn't believe it myself. She was my light, my reason for pushing through the darkest days. The thought of losing her felt unbearable, no matter what the truth revealed. By the time the guards called lights out, my resolve had hardened. I would get out of here, and I would uncover every detail of Emily's lies. The letter had planted a seed of doubt. But I needed more than words from a friend. I needed proof, the kind of proof that could rewrite everything I thought I knew about my life. My next step was clear, even if it terrified me. I had to find out the truth about Lucy, no matter what it cost me. Getting out of prison wasn't the relief I expected. The weight of that letter stayed with me, pressing harder with every step I took. The moment I walked into the clinic, I felt like I was betraying Lucy. But I had to know, sitting in that Sterile room. The nurse handed me the test kit with a sympathetic smile. I tried to steady my hands as I swabbed my cheek and sealed the sample. It felt surreal, reducing my bond with Lucy to a plastic tube and some paperwork. The wait for results stretched endlessly, every second feeding my doubts and fears. The day the results came, I almost couldn't open the envelope. My hands shook as I read the words, 0% genetic match. My heart stopped. The truth was there in black and white. Lucy wasn't my daughter. It felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. I stared at the paper, hoping it would rewrite itself. But the numbers didn't change. All the bedtime stories, the scraped knees I patched up, the endless love I poured into her, it was all real to me. But now, I didn't even know where I stood in her life. I kept telling myself that this didn't change how much I loved Lucy, but the betrayal cut so deep. Emily had taken something sacred and turned it into a lie. She let me build a life around a child she knew wasn't mine, all while hiding the truth. I couldn't stop picturing Lucy's smile, her laugh, her hugs, and now a question lingered I couldn't ignore. Was I just a placeholder in her life? The pain of losing that connection felt unbearable, but anger drove me forward. I needed more than answers. I needed accountability. Still, even in my anger, I couldn't let go of Lucy. She was my daughter, biology or not. The love I had for her wasn't written in DNA. It was in the countless moments we'd shared. But the truth had thrown a shadow over everything, and I wasn't sure how to move forward. One thing was certain, this was far from over. There were more lies to uncover, and I was determined to find them. After the paternity test results, I couldn't let the lies end there. I needed answers, the kind that would make sense of Emily's betrayal, with some digging and a little help from a friend who worked in legal records. I uncovered the truth. Emily wasn't just deceiving me, she was playing both sides. She had been collecting child support, not only from me, but also from Lucy's biological father. It wasn't just deceit, it was outright fraud. My hands trembled as I sifted through the documents. How could someone stoop so low? Looking back, the signs were there. Emily always seemed a little too polished during our court hearings, a little too confident. She manipulated the system with a skill I hadn't seen before. The anger inside me grew into something more, a need for justice. This wasn't just about me anymore. Emily had exploited not one, but two men, profiting from the chaos she created. And Lucy, she was caught in the middle of it all. How could a mother put her child through this just to make a quick buck? I couldn't stop thinking about the other man, Lucy's biological father. Did he even know she existed, or was he just another pawn in Emily's game? I tracked him down, a man named Ryan, who was just as blindsided as I was. The moment I showed him the documents, his face turned pale. He had no idea he'd been paying child support for a daughter he barely knew. We sat there in stunned silence, two strangers connected by one woman's lies. In that moment, it became clear we both deserved better. Ryan and I agreed on one thing. Emily couldn't get away with this. I didn't know what justice would look like, but I knew I couldn't stay silent. For Lucy's sake and for my own, I had to take this to court. It wasn't about revenge. It was about making things right. Emily had crossed a line, and now she'd have to face the consequences. Filing the lawsuit was both nerve-wracking and empowering. For the first time in years, I felt like I had some control over the situation. Emily's web of lies had dragged too many people down, and it was time to untangle it. My lawyer prepared the case carefully. Fraud, emotional distress, reimbursement of child support, the whole package. Walking into that courtroom felt surreal, as if I was stepping into a movie. Emily sat across the room, calm and collected, as if none of this fazed her. How could she act so unbothered when the truth was right in front of us? The trial was a roller coaster of revelations, Ryan testified, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He spoke about the years he spent unknowingly, supporting a daughter he was never allowed to meet. Then it was my turn. I laid everything bare, the betrayal, the financial ruin, the toll it had taken on my relationship with Lucy. I kept my composure for most of it, but when I mentioned Lucy's name, my voice cracked. This wasn't just a legal battle. It was my life unraveling in front of strangers. Emily, of course, denied everything at first. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a misunderstood mother, just trying to do what was best for her child. But the evidence was undeniable. Emails, financial records, even conflicting testimony, it all pointed back to her scheme. Each piece felt like a small victory, but it didn't erase the hurt. As the case unfolded, the weight of her actions became impossible to ignore, even for her. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. By the time the judge reviewed the final evidence, the air in the courtroom was electric. Everyone was waiting for the verdict. But I wasn't thinking about winning or losing anymore. I just wanted closure, a chance to start over, to rebuild what Emily had shattered. The judge's voice was calm yet firm as the decision came down. Justice was being served, but deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. There was still one more. From chapter left to right, hearing the judge's verdict felt like both a victory and a hollow reminder of what had been lost. Emily was found guilty, not just of fraud, but of falsification and deliberate deception. The sentence was clear: 3 years in prison. For a moment, I didn't know how to feel. Relief, vindication, sadness. The woman I had once loved, the mother of the child I'd raised, was now being led away in handcuffs. She didn't meet my eyes as the bailiff escorted her out, and I didn't try to catch hers. We were strangers now, bound only by the damage she had caused. The court also ruled in my favor financially. Emily was ordered to pay restitution, not just to me, but to Ryan as well. It wouldn't undo the years of stress, the nights spent lying, awake wondering how to make ends meet, but it was something, a recognition of what she'd done to us. Still, money couldn't fix the trust she had broken or the questions I now had to face with Lucy. How do you explain to a child that her mother won't be coming home for a long time? Despite everything, I couldn't ignore the ache in my chest. Watching Emily face the consequences of her actions didn't bring the satisfaction I thought it would. It only reminded me of the life we'd built together, a life she had torn apart, piece by piece. As much as I wanted to let go of the pain, it lingered, wrapped in the memories of what we used to be. Even in her absence, Emily's choices would leave a mark on my life and Lucy's, but amidst the bitterness, a flicker of hope began to grow. This wasn't the end, it couldn't be. Lucy deserved stability, love, and honesty, and I was determined to give her that, even if it meant fighting my own battles along the way. Emily's sentencing wasn't just a punishment for her, it was a chance for me to rebuild, to be the father Lucy needed. As I walked out of the courtroom, the weight on my shoulders felt just a little lighter. Even after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the courtroom battles, my heart refused to let go of Lucy. Biology didn't matter. She was my daughter in every way that counted. But the legal fight wasn't over yet. The court needed to decide where Lucy would live, and Emily's absence complicated everything. I worried the judge might see the test results as a reason to question my role in her life. My lawyer assured me we had a strong case, but that didn't ease the knot in my stomach as the hearing began. I told the court everything. The bedtime, stories, the tears I'd wiped away, the countless moments that proved I wasn't just a father, I was her dad. Ryan also testified, admitting he hadn't been involved in Lucy's life, but was willing to play a supporting role now. It was surreal, sitting beside the man who shared her DNA, both of us wanting the best for her in our own ways. But deep down, I knew she needed more than financial support. She needed someone who had been there, who knew her favorite color and the way she liked her pancakes. The judge listened intently, weighing every detail. I couldn't help but hold my breath as the decision was read aloud. primary custody would be granted to me. My hands shook as I processed the words. It wasn't just a legal victory, it was a lifeline. Lucy was coming home with me, where she belonged. The court recognized the bond we'd built, something stronger than DNA could ever define. I wanted to celebrate, but I also knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter for us both. Lucy, of course, had questions. She didn't fully understand why her mum wasn't around anymore, and I wasn't sure how much to tell her. I kept my answers simple, assuring her that she was loved and safe. It was hard watching her try to make sense of it all, but I promised myself that I'd do everything in my power to create a home filled with love and stability. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I'd face them for her, for us. Bringing Lucy home felt like the start of a new life, but it wasn't without its challenges. She was confused, asking questions about her mom that I struggled to answer. "Why can't I see her? Did I do something wrong?" she'd ask, her big, innocent eyes filled with uncertainty. I reassured her as best as I could, holding her close, and telling her none of this was her fault. It broke my heart to see her so unsure, but I knew time and love were the only remedies. Slowly, piece by piece, we began to rebuild. Our days became about creating new routines. Pancakes on Sundays, movie nights on Fridays, and long walks to the park, small traditions that gave us both something to hold on to. Ryan, Lucy's biological father, started visiting regularly. At first, it was awkward, but over time, I saw how much he cared for her in his own way. He contributed financially, but more importantly, he wanted to be there for her. I was cautious, but I also saw the value in Lucy having both of us in her life. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Despite the progress, there were moments that caught me off guard, like when Lucy would draw pictures of her family and include Emily. I didn't have the heart to tell her otherwise. I realized that no matter what had happened, Emily was still her mother. That truth didn't erase the hurt Emily caused, but it reminded me that Lucy needed room to process things in her own way. My job was to guide her through it, to be her anchor in the storm Emily had left behind. As time passed, I started to notice a change in both of us. Lucy's laughter came more easily, and so did mine. Our home began to feel like a safe haven again, filled with love and second chances. The wounds Emily left behind hadn't fully healed, but they no longer defined us. I looked at Lucy and realized she was my purpose, my reason to keep going. The road ahead wasn't without challenges, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Together, we were going to be okay.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.